good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is to wherever you're at. 91 Cav GT coming at you with a little bit of a different video today. I've got a lot of wiring, a lot of cables, and a lot of it is really old. So, over the last couple of years, I've been thinking, is this wiring still okay to use? Power inverter's running. Let me turn this power inverter off real quick. There's the power. Okay. So, is the wire still okay to use? How long do wires actually last? Now, when I say wires, I'm talking about things like this. 4-gauge wire. I made this particular cable in 2013. So, 8 years ago? 9 years ago? Something like that. So, how long are these cables good for? If you use good quality components, realistically, how many years do you expect to get a good lifespan out of your cables? Do you expect them to last 5 years? Do you expect them to last 10 years? How long? I don't know. I really don't have an answer to that question. So I decided, let's take a cable apart. Let's see. With using a hammer crimper with larger 4-gauge wire like this, does it give you a good solid crimp over the long-term use? Do the cables loosen up at all? Do you have a low resistance in the cable, or does it start to go up? When you use good quality cable, does it start to corrode internally or not? I don't know. So let's find out. So what we've got is a cable that I made 8 years ago. This cable is 4-gauge. I made this with a hammer crimp. Actually, I've got the crimper right here. The very crimper that made this. It's gotten a lot of use. That was never mushroomed like that from the factory. It's gotten a lot of use. So how well is it holding up? Well, I just made some new cables with it just a couple of days ago. Now, it occasionally gets hung up, and this little lever has come out a couple of times, but it's still holding up. Now, what brand is this? I have no idea. I really don't know. But it has held up, and there's not really much wear. So for those that don't know, what you do with a hammer crimper, get this back up here, is you take your terminal, you put it in like so, you put the wire in, and then when it's resting on there, like it is right now, you take a hammer and you knock the living daylights out of this. Usually a couple of small taps will get it seated so the wire won't come out of the terminal. And then at that point, you start hammering on it with a sledgehammer. Now, a little bitty hammer is not going to do it. You got to use a sledgehammer. And you keep hammering until the sound changes. That's the way I was always taught. Once that sound changes, you know that the cable is crimped good. I then went and put heat shrink over the ends of the cable. Now this particular cable is Memphis audio. There it is. Memphis connection, full spec, 862 strands, 4-gauge. Now this is OFC, oxygen-free copper. I don't know if it states it on the wire, but it's oxygen-free copper. So, oxygen-free copper, you should not have any kind of corrosion in the wire. So before we go and completely take the plastic sheathing off of this wire and visually inspect the copper underneath, let's take a look at an end that I made at the same time that I made these that I just cut open. And that's this. Once again, it's the exact same, but I just cut it open. Now, my blade is a little worn, so this in the very center was not actually cut with the cutter. That in the center, I had to break. But it appears as though it was a good crimp. You can see this in the very center is where the crimper came in and crimped the wire down here. It really looks like a solid crimp. Now it looks like there might, no, it kind of looked like there might be something there, but it's a solid crimp. I mean, and for being 8 years old, it looks good. So, let's see what the resistance of the cable is. I've got my Fluke multimeter here. I got it whenever I attended Lincoln Tech many moons ago. So, let's see what kind of resistance this cable has after 8 years. Okay. Make sure I've got a good solid connection here. Okay, that's all good. 1/10 of an ohm. 1/10 of an ohm. It's not the greatest, but it's not too terribly bad. Kind of surprised. I figured it was going to be a little bit higher than that, to be honest. Not bad. Not too terribly bad. Now, what is a new cable measure resistance-wise? It's not going to be much different than what you just saw. Maybe half as much. Maybe instead of 1/10 of an ohm, maybe 5/100ths of an ohm. So about half the resistance is what I would be expecting. So once again, I'll put this on there. Tenth an ohm. So yeah, maybe about half that. See, it's even going back and forth below 1/10 of an ohm occasionally. So not bad. I would not be afraid to reuse this cable. I wouldn't. So let's take the sheath off and let's take a look at it. Now this is going to be tricky. How am I going to get this sheath off one-handed? I don't know. So, got my razor knife here, and let's cut into it. You know what? I'm going to set the phone down just for a second. Hopefully it still picks me up here. To use two hands. So let's cut the sheath off. And we're going to see. How does this wire look inside? If it did not have a good airtight seal with the heat shrunk ends, then air would have been able to get into it, and that would cause corrosion. So, what are we going to find? Now, I could just cut a little section open, but you know what? I've already gone this far. Let's cut the whole thing open. I want to see. Is it only at one end if there is corrosion? Is it at both ends? What? What are we going to see? Okay. Almost there. It's a little warm in here too. Cold in the morning and warm in the afternoon. All right. Got it. So here we go. I just cut it open. Lo and behold, that's a green brownish tint to the cables. That's corrosion. Now, it's not a whole lot of corrosion. You still see a lot of copper showing. Now, a little bit of that, like right there, that's where I nicked the wire with a cutter. See, underneath, it's all nice and shiny. So the corrosion is only on the outside edge of the wire. Internally, it's still really good. But outside, it's not looking too great. So from what it looks like, there is low internal resistance due to no corrosion on the inside. But eventually, those twists and turns, that wire is going to be on the outside eventually. And this corrosion is the entire length of this cable. The entire length of the cable. So, was that due to me making the ends? And this heat shrink not being fully airtight? Or was this corrosion, did it first start during the manufacturing process? I don't know. I don't know. Typically Memphis cables like this are decent wire. And it looks to be really decent wire. Sorry. But there is definite corrosion there. But for an 8-year-old cable, that's not really that bad. I'm kind of surprised. So would I be concerned about continuing to use this cable? No. Now that I've taken it apart, is it starting to corrode? Yes. It totally is starting to corrode. But this is an 8-year-old cable. Any corrosion like this took place prior to putting the heat shrink on. I don't see anywhere that air could have gotten in. So, what do y'all think? 8 years? In my opinion, this cable is still good. I would still continue to use it. What do you guys think? Would you still continue to use a cable that was like this? Is measuring the internal resistance of a cable a good indicator of cable quality? As you see, this one does show corrosion, but it's only on the outside. So what do y'all think? Leave a comment below. I'm going to hang on to this cable just in case we want to do any further dissection of it. So what do y'all think? leave a comment below and let me know. Until next time, thank y'all for watching, and God bless you. I'll see you next time.